Hey, I'm Liz Lathan, and I'm the co-founder of the CommunityFactory and Club Ichi. And I'm so excited to be here on the Online Prosperity Show. We're talking about community, we're talking about events, we're talking about real, authentic human engagement.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got a guest whose journey is as dynamic as it is inspiring. Now, Liz, how are you doing today?
I am so good, and I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Prosper.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I mean, I wish we were recording our green room chat. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that went there, but I don't think my mom is going to want to hear what I told you about state, state beverages. But I'm excited to have you on the show today, Liz, and it's quite exciting. And for those that are watching and tuning in, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. Now, if you're watching right now, I want you to imagine being an only child and you're constantly having to navigate, the spaces between adult conversations and also childhood curiosities, and always having to seek genuine connections with the people that are around you. So this was the early experience that then shaped Liz into a pioneer in the world of event marketing and community building. Now, I'm really excited because these days it's all about community and it's all about bringing, people together as long as we are like-minded and, fighting for the same causes. So joining us, like I've already mentioned and you've already seen, is Liz Lathan, the co-founder of Club Ichi. And I can't wait to jump into what they do at Club Ichi and also the Community Factory. And she comes with 2 decades of experience. And Liz has transformed the way that we actually think about events, shifting mainly from the focus of just attending or just showing up at events, but actual authentic engagement. And there's a fun tidbit that we are probably going to explore a little bit, and I was just wondering why this is. But despite her being an adventurous spirit herself, Liz has a strong aversion to salmon. And if you know any recipes or things that she can try, with salmon, please write them in the comments below, because she actually told me she probably has been put off salmon for the rest of her life. And I want us to prove her wrong. So if you're going to be planning dinner at one day to invite her or things of that nature, just take note of that little tidbit there, right? Only amazing salmon recipes, please. All right. But today we're not going to be making dinner or sharing any food, tales. We are going to dive into Liz's remarkable journey from her beginnings in journalism and also marketing at Texas A&M University to leading innovative event strategies at tech giants like Dell and IBM. And we're also going to be exploring how her unique experiences have shaped her approach to fostering genuine human connections in the corporate world. Now, Liz, you can tell I'm already fumbling my words and talking in ways that I have no experience in. It's your journey. It's your story. I mean, your journey starts off early when you were obviously a single child, or like a one child. Tell us what your life was like in those times.
Yeah, I've had an amazing, wonderful, fabulous, unbelievable childhood and life. And I was an only child, which I always thought was a terrible thing because all my friends had siblings. But then I realized that if I had siblings, I'd have to share. And so I was perfectly okay after that, being an only child. But, the only reason that this came up is because people often ask, why I do what I do today and why am I so adamant about building community and making sure people don't feel left out when they come into group gatherings. And I look back and I am certain that it came from that only childness. I didn't fit into the adult world, but I was always at the dinner table at my parents' dinner parties with adults. And so having these adult conversations didn't make me fit in at the school lunch table where there were very different conversations. And I felt like I wasn't part of that group either. So, kind of just being in between worlds, I never felt like I truly belonged in either of them. And so, I think some part of that belonging journey for me was trying to find my fit. And then finally realizing that maybe I'm not going to fit everywhere, and that's okay. I could create my own community and find other people that fit with me. And so that's really where I kind of got into the event world, and that led me to community.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for sharing that little tidbit. I mean, obviously, being an only child would have obviously forced you to try and reach out to, like you said, other adults, and obviously the conversations were not as good. Also, other kids at the lunch table, at the lunch or the canteen, would not have resonated. But you would have had maybe friends, or whether certain things that you then found comfort in, like was it a toy, or was it a special person, or was
I
it
mean, I certainly felt like in both worlds I had a place, right? I mean, you have friends, and you have your parents' friends are extremely nice. I mean, I had incredible opportunities and conversations, and there's nothing that I would say I turned to. I would say I was just trying to figure out how to navigate it, you know. And then going off to college was kind of the first opportunity to be around people of multiple age ranges. And so you realize at that point that age doesn't really matter as much as it did when you were in elementary and middle school, and that it's more about who you are and not how old you are. And then you get into the working world and realize that similarly, you're going to be in a multi-generational workforce, and actually being able to talk to all age ranges is a huge benefit.
Absolutely. And you took it to extremes. I mean, obviously, you then went on and did a stint with the Army Corps. What was that like? Because those are
Oh, that
very
was in
unique and
college. I was not in the Army. I'll clarify that. It was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is a civilian division of the Army. And I was in college. So I was a co op student, and I was a journalism major in college. And so my role there was in the public affairs office. And I got to run the magazine for one of the divisions in Galveston, Texas. And so my role was to be editor and content curator and get the stories from the people that worked and lived in our district and share those with the employees of the Army Corps of Engineers that were in our area. So again, it was my early storytelling, my early career in events and getting to do public events where we were telling what the Corps of Engineers was doing for the community. So that's kind of where it really all started. And I still to this day love the storytelling aspects of it.
absolutely. And I mean, obviously, got you to meet a lot of people, interacting with people of different status in society and things of that nature. What drew
Yeah.
you to journalism?
Uh, well, my dad was an engineer, and I thought for sure I was going to be an engineer because that's what you're supposed to do is look at what your father does and then go find that career. And so he was actually introducing me to metallurgy, and he was in the mining industry. So I'd gone to some copper mines with him and some really cool places. And then I hit calculus, and calculus hit me back. And I thought, I always really liked telling stories. Maybe journalism would be an option for me. But the thing is, that engineering mind of how do you take things apart? How do you solve problems, and how do you put them back together and understand them in the simplest way so that things will work is exactly what I brought into journalism. Because what you're doing is understanding the story as a whole and then breaking down the parts and pieces so that you have a deeper understanding of it, and then telling the story in the simplest way so that other people can leverage it, use it, share it, or enjoy it. And so I think I have that. I like to say people are either waffle brained or spaghetti brained. So you're either like you have syrup in one square at a time, or you have spaghetti with sauce on every noodles. And I think I'm kind of right in between. So I still like the right brain and the left brain pretty equally. But bringing that to the people side of things with journalism is what drew me.
Absolutely. And that's a very unique skill because usually people are binary, they're either or.
Mm.
And I can now see why it was easy for you to then transition to tech giants like Dell and IBM because, you obviously were helping them tell stories in the times where everything was just technologically inclined, and they probably were not connecting that well with their audience. What was it like in those sort of spaces And what did you sort of instigate during that time?
Well, for me, I went from journalism. I was in media relations at my first job, which was at a different tech company out of college, and did that trying to place articles in magazines and things like that. But I fell into events when everyone at that company, especially in the marketing department, had the opportunity to participate in their user conference. And so I was in charge of helping with the registration portion of the user conference. And I just kind of fell in love with it. So I toyed around with some different little mini careers in between before really landing in events. And when I got the role at Dell, it was in something called an executive briefing center, which is not, it was part of the events team, but it was all events inside their briefing center at the headquarters campus. And so my role was to understand what the salespeople needed to share with the customers. They were bringing the customers on site to Dell, and my role was to go find the subject matter experts that could help tell that story to the customers so that they understood what solutions were in front of them. But where I got really fascinated by it was that was a little administrative of a role, but kind of strategic too, because I had to hear what the customers wanted to understand, what the salespeople wanted to share with them, and then match them up with the right subject matter experts. But getting into the data behind that is where I got really fascinated. These meetings are happening. Are the stories that are being told the ones that actually match to the corporate strategy, or are they really just what the salespeople think they can do to close a deal? And then identifying those gaps, like, well, we're seeing that the deals are closing, but also it's not tying to what Michael Dell is saying are our corporate initiatives for the year. How much do I need to care about that? And do I need to have somebody weave in those stories? And so pulling the data, understanding that, and then getting the right stories to be told so that deals could be closed was really, really cool to me. And then from there, I moved into the event team where we were doing external events and trade shows and other shows all over the world, and still staying in kind of an operations role at first, but getting my hands dirty on some actual events outside of the building. And that's where it got really fun.
Oh, absolutely. And that also put you in the world, in a realm of meeting up with so many diverse people from diverse locations and things like that. But as human beings connect, there's an element of um, the need for authenticity,
Yeah.
because when people just connect, it's usually just surface level, talk about the weather, and nothing deep actually happens from there. But you have sort of started to emphasize the importance of what you call authentic engagement over just superficial interactions. Maybe you can explain what that actually means, especially the fact that you were working with such big corporations. They would have
Yeah.
probably had time to, navigate all of that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think when you work in a corporation and you're doing events, you're kind of checking the boxes. You're doing what people tell you to do. You're going to craft this event. You're going to use this branding. You're going to just do all the execution and logistics things so that people show up. And that's really your job, right? The content people are responsible for the content. As the event person, you're responsible for the logistics and execution. The executives and the salespeople are responsible for shaking hands and pressing the flesh and doing all those things. But when we go back to my childhood conversation, me being an only child and not wanting to share was the benefit of being an only child was my dad traveled around the world. Like I said, he was in the copper industry, and every summer I'd get to go with him. He would take me and my mom to some amazing country and some amazing continent, and we would most of the time stay with his business associates. It was long before Airbnb existed, and we would just stay with his friends and his colleagues in their homes. And so I feel like I always grew up with this sense of hospitality in every single culture, in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America. Everywhere we went, there was just this genuine, authentic hospitality of welcoming you in, making you feel at home, and helping connect you to the traditions and the lives that they were leading. So take that back to the corporate world. That's what was missing for me. We were designing these boxes for people to go into, but once the people got there, we weren't paying any attention to what they're going to do when they're there. We weren't really welcoming them in. We weren't making sure they felt taken care of. We were just doing the things that we're supposed to do. And so that's where my career started to evolve into me really thinking about that welcome and that engagement, that human connection and human engagement that we can inject into events. So when I started leading the global event team and took over the teams and the events were under my purview, that was definitely my biggest push for my team was who's the host? who's going to be there welcoming people in, and then they can be released into the wild to go fend for themselves. And after I left corporate and we started a company called the CommunityFactory, that was really the intent. It was, we're not here to design the box. You can hire an event agency to design where people are going to meet. We're here to make sure that once the people get there, they feel welcome and they feel connected and they have facilitated networking opportunities, and they don't just feel like they're left to fend for themselves over cheese cubes and loud music.
Absolutely. But why is that relevant? You know, especially in a corporate sense, people are just there to buy computers or buy software, and move on to
But
the
they're
next
not.
thing.
The thing is, they're not. The number one, have you ever heard of value graphics? That's one to look up. So a gentleman named David Allison has done this research study with, I think, over 1 million points of truth in all of the surveys and studies that he's done. And they found that the global number one value that people hold is belonging. So sure, they want to go buy something, but why would they pick Dell over Lenovo or HP or Apple or any of those things? Part of that is procurement. And then the other part of it is how they feel. And that was the really key moment for me when we launched our very first Dell World conference. It was our big user conference. And I was handed this role. We'd never had a big user conference before. And they said, Liz, you're going to be in charge of creating this. You have 86 days. I want 1,500 customers. Go. And soup to nuts had to figure out how to do it. And we were there at the end of day 2 at the conference. We had closed down a street in Austin, Texas for the party, and the customers were out there. And it was really before it got wild and crazy. And I was kind of doing the last check to make sure the band was ready to go. And a couple of customers had snuck in. They got out of the session and they snuck over to the party a little early. They grabbed their drink because, I was like, it's okay. The bar will serve you. Go for it. And they called me over to their table and they said, you know what's really different about this event than all the other ones I've been to? Like, oh, please tell me what. And they said, Dell just has this authentic touch. It feels like you're not trying too hard. And all these other conferences are so overproduced and so over just pixel perfect. And this one feels like you cared about what you put together and that we really like being here and we feel cared for. And I was like, oh my gosh. I think at that time, I didn't even know that I was trying to do that. But having them see it and recognize it cemented that in my brain that all events need to be that way. They all need to have this feeling of authenticity.
But Liz, who would say no to a couple of drinks? I mean, that's what you did, and then obviously from there they just felt like, wow, this is Liz. I think.
No, I don't think that was it. I think it was genuine. They had been there for 2 days. They had experienced the way that we put things together and the way that we made sure they were taken care of. And it wasn't just a conference where you get your badge, stand alone in a corner and look at your phone because you don't know anyone. That's the worst experience. We had hosts, we had event wingmen, we had people that were making sure that everyone was connected and they had moments of connection. And that's what they were reflecting on. So that's what I felt.
Absolutely. And I quite like that in and of itself because people would have traveled far and wide
They
to
did.
come to these conferences. And if they are not integrated or somebody sees them, that actually obviously would leave a sour taste, not on the conference, but the actual brand overall. And
Exactly.
it is
And we've
something.
all been to events like that. Even the networking events you go to, you walk in, they either there's a check-in desk or there's not even a check-in desk. And you walk into the room and you can't tell who's in charge. And maybe you pick up your name badge off of an unmanned table and you put a name badge on, and now it's your job to go figure out what you're supposed to do. And how do you break into conversations that are already happening? That's so uncomfortable. So you go to the bar because you don't know what else to do and you get yourself a drink and then you wander around trying to figure out who you can talk to. It's terrible and it's awkward. And if you could just have somebody come in and welcome you in and introduce you to someone, or have people that are trained to see that you're new into the room. And if they're standing with a group of people, they take a step back and they let you come into the conversation so that you feel welcome. Those little touches make such a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, for people like myself, I had to fly halfway across the world to come to a world where nobody knows your name. And every time I literally have to, reach out to someone and connect. And I can only imagine what that would be like for people that have never traveled in their life and they're doing it for the very first time. And I'm thinking if people are coming to a Dell conference, there might be some sort of a geek or tech guy, and so they already have,
A little
social.
in introvert nature. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you went on and co-founded the Community Factory. First of all,
Mhm.
tell us what that is, because I think you're now redefining event engagement with this.
Yeah, the Community Factory, like I said, is really intended to help people connect at events. So the idea was we have this signature experience that we call a spontaneous think tank, where we invite the participants of an event, and we call them participants, not attendees, because they're not supposed to just attend; they must participate. And we bring in these big, giant sticky notes, the 6x8 sticky notes. No one's ever seen them this big before, right? And we ask them, "What challenge are you here to solve today?" And we have a big wall, and we've got Sharpie markers and sticky notes, and they cover the wall with their challenges that they're here to solve. We call it the wall of woes. And then from those challenges, we create the peer-to-peer conversations that are going to happen at the conference. So not only do they have this moment of shared connection where they're all seeing each other's challenges on the wall and going, oh my gosh, I feel that too. Oh, that same thing at my company. Or, oh, we actually have solved that. We should talk. We see that happen in this spontaneous collision kind of moment. And then throughout the conference, we will set up these peer-to-peer conversations with a facilitator and say, from the wall, we've picked out these 6 topics that will become peer conversations, set those up, and then people can actually think tank it or solve their problems together. So that's kind of the core offering that we've had at the Community Factory. But beyond that is now event engagement. And so we talk a lot about people will come to us and often say, how do I increase engagement at my event? Well, we need to understand what you're looking for, because engagement can mean a million different things. Are you looking for more likes on your social posts? Are you looking for fewer people on their cell phones during the keynote? Are you looking for people to learn something, and actually maybe it's a sales conference and they need to be tested on the things that they're learning before they go out and sell? So we try to help people understand the 3 types of engagement: cognitive, behavioral, and emotional engagement, and then determine what exactly they're trying to accomplish with those and design some program elements around that for them. And then what the metrics are going to be so that they are measurable and you can actually tell if you created more engagement. So that's the Community Factory's core.
I like that, Liz, because I hardly ever go to conferences or things of that nature, because only one person gets to talk, and that's usually the MC or the person that's presenting the keynote, and everybody else just goes back home as if nothing happened. And I think that's just a waste, because the
It
people that
is. Let
come
me tell
to
you, if your entire event can be watched on YouTube, why did I need to get on a plane and fly there?
Wow. See, that puts it in
Right?
perspective, because that's what most conferences are. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very dark auditorium, which just means people just want numbers and bums on seats, and we don't even want to see your face. We don't even want to see what you were wearing to even
Right.
count you as a participant in some of this. So I quite like this. I quite like this. And
Yeah, and events have to change, or people are just going to stop going to them. And people shouldn't stop going to them, because in the age of digital and AI, who can you trust? We don't even know anymore with deep fakes and with, all this crazy stuff that's happening digitally. You only really know you can trust what's happening when you're face to face with people. You can't fake that. And so events are just going to have this huge resurrection over the course of the next few years, because people really trust being in person. So we have to fix that and make the in-person experience actually engaging and useful and worth your time.
I can so see this. Does this only happen in an in-person setup? Because Zoom is also opening up to connecting people internationally, but
Yeah.
people are just showing up with, like no video, so there's no connection. But I can think that can also be put onto an online platform. Or are you guys just working with the in-person events?
No, we do so much online. But I think that, it's especially when you're trying to create community around this experience, it's not just the online thing. So we've got kind of a formula that we follow in creating communities. We call it the 5 S's. It's the show, the site, the series of gatherings, the sounding board, and the shareable moment. So if you're trying to build a campaign or a community or drive business, think about the show. That's what is your top of funnel way to engage with people who are not currently in your community, but might want to come in it by seeing what you're doing there. Is it a YouTube channel, a podcast, a TikTok channel, a newsletter, something that they don't have to be a part of necessarily to be able to access it? The next one is the site. Do you have some sort of online platform where people can asynchronously connect, whether it's a message board, a Slack channel, a Discord, even a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group, but some way that your members can talk to each other? The next is the series of gatherings. And this is where those online or in-person events can happen. So are they Zoom based where people are getting in together and actually having conversations? Are they webinars, but people are really active in the chat? Or are they in-person meetups or actual conferences? Doesn't really matter. It's what's right for your community, but a mix of digital and in-person is really good for a community to have. And the next one is the sounding board. So who are your 5 to 7 people that can be your inner circle, that are in your community, that you can learn from, that you can find out if the content you're putting out is right for that persona? And if you can at least catch up with them every quarter so that you can make sure that you're keeping it on track. And it doesn't have to be the same 7 people every quarter. You can change it out so that you get new perspectives. And then the last one is our shareable moment. What's happening inside those other channels and inside your community that can be shared out either by you or by the members of the community so they feel like they get to amplify their eminence by saying, I got this because I'm in this community, and now they look special, and it drives more people to want to join your community, which drives them back to your top, which was the show, and now it becomes this whole flywheel experience. So if you put all of those things together, it doesn't have to just be virtual or just in person. You can build this ecosystem around creating community.
I like that because I think you did mention earlier on, the element of belonging, that as human beings, we're always looking for places that we can plug ourselves in. And if we're seen and that reciprocity sort of starts happening, then obviously we'll do our best to,
Right.
obviously help that community grow and introduce it to, people in our communities. But building a community requires having to talk to people, and we all know what people are like, and maybe having to understand human behavior deeply, because from what I'm gathering from you, there's a lot of psychology that goes into this, because you're bringing in so many people from diverse angles and you're trying to get them to focus on one main goal, which obviously has a branded effect to it. How do you
Yeah.
then ensure that your events cater to diverse needs of all these participants who are coming from all walks?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your objective and what you're trying to pull together. So when you go into, we're talking about more community than events, there's really 3 types of communities. There's communities of purpose, communities of product, and communities of practice. So a community of purpose might be your nonprofit that's trying to cure world hunger. Your community of product might be a SaaS product, a software company. Maybe you're a bunch of users of QuickBooks and you want to get together to solve problems together and see how people are using it. Or the community of practice, which are more of those industry association feeling ones, people that are in the same career and are coming together to share their challenges. And so once you understand that, that's kind of going more into the value graphics part than the demographics part, then it's easier to figure out because you've brought a group of people together. You use the word like-minded earlier, but I would say they're like frequencied. They're people that are there and they're kind of on the same frequency to know what they're trying to accomplish. Because if you've built that event or community correctly, then you're attracting the right people. There'll always be outliers. There's somebody that comes in as super salesy and you have to kick them out. There's, things that happen, but for the most part, you're going to attract the right people when you put the right person in charge of it.
Fantastic. So if we're going to be looking at the right person, that sort of then, leans into somewhat of a personal brand within that business, because people will follow people, right? And then, like you said,
It's true.
you gave a bunch of tech guys alcohol and they were all excited about, the conference that you put together for them there. But a lot of businesses struggle with connecting, even with just an audience that's just supposed to buy from them, or building meaningful communities. What are some of maybe the pitfalls that you've maybe observed when people are on their way to build communities, and how can they actually be avoided?
I think companies are afraid to put a face to things, especially big corporations. But if you look at the ones that are really successful, they do have a face. I mean, when you think of Apple, you think of Steve Jobs. And when you think of Dell, his is a little easier because his name's on all the boxes, but Michael Dell is the face of that community. But that doesn't mean that you have to get access to the CEO in order to feel like a part of something. I mean, just because Steve Jobs never spoke to you doesn't mean that you feel less inclined to love Apple products. There's something about that community that put you in touch with it. If you have this creative mind, they did that manifesto of we are the rebels, we are the change makers, right? And so if you feel that, that's the value that they're tapping into. And so it's having those geniuses at the genius bar where you kind of walk in and you feel that there's a face to it and that it's not super faceless, versus challenges with the healthcare companies. There's no face to it. You feel like a number, you're treated like a number, and there's a challenge there. And that's why there've been some pretty tragic experiences lately that happened around healthcare, especially in the US. But I think that's the real differentiator. When you feel like there's a person that you can reach out to, then you feel more connected. And so I really encourage corporations to have a community manager. If your CEO doesn't want to be that face, have somebody, even if it's a customer success team, that can be the face for your company and let people feel like there's humans behind that.
Absolutely, because like you said, people are seeking to belong, and if they can find somebody they can gravitate towards, it doesn't necessarily have to be the CEO, like you say. But as you would understand, corporates or corporations or even businesses would only support something if it feeds into their bottom line, or if they can see somewhat of a measurement of success. How are we going to know we've arrived if we instigate something like this? And what are we measuring? How are we going to see? Is it the likes we're looking at? Because the last time I checked, likes don't pay bills.
They do not pay bills, but enough likes do draw more attention. And so if your goal is brand awareness so that you're driving brand affinity, so if more people know about Coca-Cola, then Coca-Cola can dominate much more easily than if nobody's ever heard of it before. So understanding what your goals actually are and then what the metrics are. Quite often for a company, the goals are going to be revenue. And so if all of the programs, campaigns, events, communities that you're building are intended to drive revenue, then that's one single metric everyone can go toward. But it's a holistic view of what we're trying to accomplish. So we want that brand awareness piece, right? So people know our brand, know, like, and trust us, the marketing terms for it. And then the bottom line, we want that revenue piece. What are we doing to drive revenue? For every dollar I put into this program, how much am I going to get back? And everything in between. How much do people like us? How often do people recommend us, the NPS score? How often are people actually bringing other people along on these events and these programs? Each event can have its own NPS score separate from the larger corporate NPS score. So understanding all those metrics, and that takes me back to the engagement metrics: cognitive, behavioral, and emotional. Cognitive is, did I want someone to learn something? In which case I can metric that. I can measure whether or not they learned it. Behavioral, do I want them to do something? Do I need to scan their badge and collect a lead? Do I need them to sign up for something or read something or share something? And that's even the social shares, right? That's a behavioral metric. And then emotional. So that's where that loyalty, that feeling of belonging, that trust factor comes in. And all of these things are measurable. You just have to know why you're measuring it and what your metric of success is. So I think there's ROI, return on investment. There's ROO, return on objective. And there's ROE, return on emotion.
Because half of the time people just look at the bank account, and if it's not singing, then, but I think the emotional, aspect of it really, really, you can't measure a hug, and you can't measure somebody tweeting about it,
Right.
and things of that nature. But it does foster the brand to move forward. So obviously a lot of people would have questions. A lot of people would want to know how it is that you work and what are they walking away with. What would be the best way that people can either connect, with you, or start their journey for a community initiative?
Yeah, so I am all over LinkedIn. Liz Lathan is my name. And if you're in the event industry or interested in business to business events, Club Ichi is the community that we run. And you can find us at weareichi.com. That's ICHI. And it's a community of incredible business to business event professionals who are sharing these ideas. It's a community of practice, as we've talked about the types of communities, and they are all like frequency. They are looking for better ways to engage. They are looking to share with each other and learn from each each other. And they're so friendly and helpful. And we have this amazing Slack channel where they continue to help each other every single day. We have in-person gatherings. We do all the things of my 5 S's. Our show, Top of Funnel, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on YouTube. We're actually launching the industry's first reality show later this year, which is going to be super fun. And members of the community are going to get to come on that show. So we're all over the place. And whether you're looking at us from the Community Factory standpoint of how you can help your events create more engaging experiences, or you want a place to belong as well, and you're in the event industry for Club Ichi, then come join us either way.
Absolutely. I'll definitely put the links in the show notes so that people can hop on and be a part of what you're creating. So Ichi, what's Ichi about Ichi?
Yeah, so Club Ichi, it was born from we used to do an event back in the olden days. It started in 2017. That was kind of an unconference. It was the initial beginnings of the spontaneous think tank, and it was true peer-to-peer. It was like an event that was entirely a coffee break. We did this wall of woes to find out the challenges, and we created this experience. So this event was just an event that happened several times. It was not a community or intended to be, but it became a community. In 2019, we even did the world's first secret business trip where we invited 80 experiential marketers to meet us at JFK Airport in New York, bring a passport, pack for 6 days, and we told them nothing else. And when they got there, we revealed that we had chartered a plane and we're taking them to Tuscany in Italy for this 6-day conference, spontaneous think tank experience. And that was in 2019, and we all know what happened in 2020. So we were sadly unable to do the secret trip again. And then when Nicole and I launched the Community Factory, and we left the agency we were at previously, the people that had come to those events before kept asking us where the community went. And we kind of said, I don't know what you mean. What community? And they said, the community that was formed. We're like, there was no community. They were just events. Haha. And they said, no, your company is called the Community Factory. You need to turn this into a real community. So we were given the push, and we got together 15 of our kind of original, I guess we will call them community members. And they told us point blank, you have to turn this into something. So we found this Japanese phrase, Ichigo Ichi, which means one moment, one time. And one of the members said, that's it. You have to call it Ichi. One. We are one. We are Ichi. And so right then and there, he bought the URL, weareichi.com, and he said, I just started your community for you. So we launched it. We went back to those people that had come to some of the events and said, hey, there's a real community now. And so they jumped in. And between March and December of 23, we had about 600 people sign up to be a part of the community and kind of kick it off. And then in December of 23, we decided we're going to really make this a large part of our business, and we're going to focus on this. There's clearly a need in our industry for this type of engagement. So we turned on a paid level. We got a couple of strategic partners, and now a year later, we're at 10,000 members. And we're just growing like crazy, trying to help people connect with each other and create better events. So that's what Club Ichi is and all about. And we're doing that secret business trip. We're bringing it back in 2026. And I won't tell you the destination, but it's going to be epic. And then last year, just to kind of re-level set the type of events that we do, we chartered a yacht in Croatia, and we held all of our conference sessions on giant inflatable unicorns in the Adriatic Sea. So that's the kind of fun stuff we do.
Absolutely. And there's nothing traditional about that. But Liz, I got to ask you this. Everything you've been doing ever since you were a kid has just been swimming against the stream.
I know where you're going. It's true. Are you calling me salmon?
I don't know. Are you just afraid of eating yourself, Riha?
This is so deep. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the problem. I need to look in the mirror. Every time I eat salmon, I need to think, this is it. We are one. We are Ichi.
Nothing about all the things that you're doing, nothing has been traditional. It has going in, disrupting, and then just going against and creating your own way and path from that.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Anyway, you do eat sushi, right? So at least maybe.
I love it, Prosper. That's great.
Absolutely. Right. But for those that are obviously still on the umming and ahhing of, do I need a community? There's a lot of people to look after and
Yeah.
things of that nature. What sort of advice would you just give to them? And you want to just look at it in this way that social media has become very toxic
Mm.
for a lot of people, and so many people are looking to belong. And if we're, in a position for us to create our own little community where we can invite our own, I think
Yeah.
so much of what is happening with the world and engagement would actually be solved by us just creating these little communities of our own.
It's true. I mean, we've heard it from our Surgeon General in the US and so many studies all over the world that there's a loneliness epidemic. And we are more digitally connected, yet humanly disconnected than we've ever been before. So I think step one is look for community, look around and see what you can find and see if you fit into any of the communities that exist and see where you can help, see where you can offer a lending, a helping hand or advice or guidance. And then if you don't find something that fits you, start your own. Start small, but be committed because communities have to have leaders. It's those faceless associations that don't have anyone who really feels like you can connect with that are no fun to be a part of. They just feel like a chore. So finding the community that has a leader that cares or being that leader who cares. I'll give you one more of my frameworks, and it is my 5 C's of community. And they are care, collaborate, co-create, converse, and connect. Most people, when they start an event or a community, they say, oh, I'm doing it for connections. But you can't just build a room and assume people will connect. You have to go through these steps. And step one is care. Whoever's leading it has to care about the experience and care about the people who are coming. The next one is collaborate. So what can you do that will allow the people to come together and connect? So as we talked about with conferences, to go sit in a dark room for 5 hours and just sit and get content without the opportunity to network and connect, you need to add in those collaborative moments. And from that comes co-creating, because if you've created the opportunity for them to collaborate, they will hopefully co-create something together. How can you give them the business opportunities to do business together or to partner together or to even just learn from each other? Which leads me to converse. You need to have opportunities for people to have real conversations in your events. So don't just do keynote, breakout, expo, party. Add in peer-to-peer conversations, roundtable conversations, spontaneous think tanks, if you must, just get people talking to each other. Now you're finally at connection. You've created this environment. They can officially connect. And those 5 things build community.
Mm, absolutely. And they do say it takes a village to raise a child. So if you're
Absolutely.
going to be wanting to really grow your business, just build a village around it. And that village becomes the community. Because if you want to go far, yes, you can do it alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. Now, Liz,
I
I
agree.
can't thank you enough for the time that you've shared with us and just sharing your incredible journey and insights with us today. And I think your dedication to actually foster these genuine human connections. I mean, obviously, yes, we did notice you were an only child, but your need to want
I
to
certainly
connect.
don't feel like one. I have a whole world of family at my
You have
fingertips.
created, that's what I was going to say. You've created your own family around, I mean, genuine human connections in the corporate world. I think that's truly inspiring. So many people are just going to work and coming back home and they're not even connected with who they're becoming. So
Yeah.
just bringing them to like vibration people. I'm going to steal that one from you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. I'll just leave you with one thought, which is fun. Make sure that you're having fun. When you're bringing people together, do things that are fun. It's don't we become adults and we forget that play is really so vital. So just make sure you're doing ridiculous, insane, fun things every once in a while.
Thank you so much. I don't know about you, but I'm at work right now, Liz. So if this has been fun, then I think we've done an amazing job there. And for those that are watching, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. And I think if Liz's story resonated with you, I want you to consider how authentic engagement can actually transform your own endeavors. And if you're a leader and you think you can be in a position to connect other people, collaborate with them, care, and actually co-create, I think you build communities that will make your business profitable and enjoyable. And I'll be putting in all those links for you to connect with Liz, so you could maybe be a part of Club Ichi. And now I'm I've got itchy feet, Liz. You know, I don't know where you're gonna take us next. So I'm really
Keep an eye out. It's going to be epic.
absolutely. For those that
Come
are
join us on the
watching,
plane.
absolutely. And for those that are watching, yeah, keep inspired with the shows that we have on the online prosperity show, where we actually explored, ideas like this that will either lead you to a happier existence or create businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. And don't forget to subscribe to the show just so you can not miss out on more enlightening conversations like this. Until next time, bye for now.